So Holly, could you list for me what you've been called too much of?
Yep. Too opinionated, too loud, but also too quiet. Too left-wing. Too feminist. Too fat. Too thin. Too short. What else? Too assertive. Which kind of borders on then selfish for some people. Yeah, that's probably the main ones.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, so for a long time I didn't sort of talk about my achievements and my successes, and that really comes from kind of being told when I was younger that I, was too kind of boastful and showed off, and I was kind of precocious. But that's something that I'm really trying to sort of get over at the moment. And I'm sort of recognising kind of the benefits, both to myself and to others, of actually talking about what I've achieved, like at work or just kind of in life. I think so. I mean, I wouldn't be in my current job, which I really love, if I hadn't been really open about my achievements. And I also in my old role, I wanted to kind of raise the profile of my function, because I genuinely believe that what I do is important, but it's often quite undervalued. So talking about what I was achieving and the successes I was having kind of as a way of raising the profile of what I did, and kind of enabling then, my successors to have more support and more recognition from across the organisation. So yeah, I think that's kind of a key thing that I've been trying to overcome recently. And also kind of when I say I'm trying to be comfortable talking about my successes, I mean in a way that still feels like me. So not showing off, not parading around and taking credit for other people's work, because that wouldn't be who I am. That's not who I want to be. But sort of recognising, like, yeah, I've done these things and I'm really proud of it, and I think that's really good. And lifting up other people who've kind of played a part in that as well. Like, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not all about my achievements. It's about something that people have achieved together. So yeah, that's something I'm exploring right now. I think it's going quite well. I think it's going quite well.
I'm pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you talked about some of the in terms of dating, in terms of I suppose we kind of briefly touched on like taking up space as a woman, and how do you think that applies in terms of dating? You told some stories about being implied to be too much in areas of dating. What?
Oh, I mean, I think. Well, firstly, I think we're sort of expected not to enjoy it, and not to want to do it, and to only do it, because we want to like get married or whatever, which is completely untrue. Like, I date because I like it, and I think that's kind of a taboo still in society, that women might enjoy dating and might enjoy sex. We're certainly not able to talk about it with any level of openness. So that, then the kind of too promiscuous, too slutty, whatever. And that's not, those aren't judgments that ever really apply to men. And also they're bullshit judgments, like, who cares? It's as long as everybody's happy and consenting, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having all the sex and going on all the dates. So I do really enjoy it, but I definitely come up against people who, don't expect me to want to have sex on the first date or whatever, and they're like surprised if I like say that I'm into them and like say that I fancy them, because they just don't expect women to be assertive about their sexuality. And then there's also kind of, like I was touching on earlier, kind of talking about my achievements. I'm trying to do that on dates as well, and I have had a couple of dates say like, bit showing off there, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm literally just stating facts about what I do and what I get paid to do, and if you think that's showing off, then I don't know. I don't even know what that says. I don't even know what that says about them, but they're just wrong. So, yeah. The too opinionated one, that's, I mean, certainly recently, I've had a lot of benefit from that. So I did a panel event a while back, and it's the first panel event I'd ever done, but I knew the topic inside out. It's what I do. So, you know, I was kind of confident in my views. But I was the only woman on the panel. I was the youngest. One of the other panelists was an MP, and we didn't agree about certain things. And it was really nerve-wracking, actually, to say that and to be assertive about it. But I kind of looked in the audience and I saw, like, some of my friends were there, and they were kind of rooting for me and wanting me to keep going. So I did. So I stood up for what I believed in. And it sort of, you know, he didn't change his mind. It was never about making him change his mind. It was about recognising that, yes, I have this opinion, and yes, I believe it quite strongly, but that's still of value and it's still important. And, you know, it should be heard. And if it was the other way around, if I was in the audience and somebody didn't sort of speak out on this thing, then I would have kind of been quite disappointed and been, you know, felt like they really missed an opportunity there and should have said something. So that's kind of too opinionated. But also I guess, like, also, you know, too assertive, because I was, like, disagreeing openly with this person who's got years and years of experience and, you know, standing and respectability and all that. And I'm just kind of little old me, and a lot of people will kind of take that as being, yeah, too assertive and kind of audacious and what have you. But I was invited to be on the panel as well. I had just as much right to say what I thought as he did. Actually, I have my job because of my opinions and because of my assertiveness. I met somebody who works in my organisation at a separate event, and we got talking and we ended up in a debate, and we weren't agreeing on everything, far from it. But he you know, obviously liked that I was really engaged with this, and, you know, really wanted to have this argument and this debate with him. So he said, like, we've got these roles, you should apply. Like, I wouldn't be in my job if I hadn't have been opinionated and been assertive. So that's kind of brought it into focus as well. What else? So the too loud, that definitely is related. I don't tend to, like, shut up, and also I dress loud, I look quite loud. I'm quite a small person, so in terms of actual space, I don't take it up, but in terms of, like, metaphorical space, I probably do, just because, you know, with the way I dress, with all the colours and stuff, you do kind of notice me. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's my identity, and it's what a lot of people know me for as well. And I'm happy with that being a facet of my identity. Like, I think that's cool.
Yeah, do you love that about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, some people look really chic and wear all black in monochrome and grey, and more power to them, but that's just not me. Like, I like florals, I like colour, I like pink, I like kind of stereotypically girly stuff, but that doesn't mean that I am any less, you know, strong or powerful or whatever, just because I like those kind of stereotypical things. So yeah, I definitely like that about myself. I feel like if you go into my bedroom at home, it feels very me, because it's florals everywhere, it's pink everywhere, but, like, that's how I like it, so I think it's a good thing. And then the occasions in which I've been called too quiet is partly because of what I was talking about earlier in terms of not talking about my achievements. It's taken me a while, and I'm still getting there with it, to kind of develop my confidence at work. So for ages I would be really reluctant to sort of speak up in meetings, for example, or put forward my point of view, and I would have people saying, like, no, kind of put yourself forward. And I agree with them. I think it is important, like I was saying earlier, if you've got a view, to speak about it. But at the same time, I like to listen and I like to hear what other people are saying and kind of learn from them as well. I don't want to... It's about striking a balance, I guess. You know, you don't want to just bulldoze in and all eyes on you to the detriment of everyone else. But I don't think it has to be that way. I think there is a balance to be found. Yeah, what else was there? I can't remember now. The body image stuff around too fat, too thin, like, that's just because I used to be overweight and then I lost it, and then, you know, but I think what I've realised is it doesn't really matter, because I'm never gonna, you know, how much I weigh doesn't really affect whether or not I'm happy with who I am. And, you know, it's much more important to just enjoy life. Do physical activity to make yourself feel good, sure. I ride my bike everywhere rather than, you know, I get tube sometimes, but most of the time I cycle because I like it, because I like being, you know, out on the streets and, you know, you get some sun, whatever. But it's not about size, it's not about weight. And actually the cycling thing, that's another one. So taking up space very much when you're cycling, you have to do it because it's the safest way to be. It's called taking the lane, and it's if you're in a narrow road, or there's parked cars or potholes or whatever, it's the safest place is in the middle of the road so that other cars don't try to overtake you. Yeah. And they get so annoyed. And I'm like, you know what, like, I'm sorry if I'm delaying your journey in your 1-ton metal box by being out here with nothing but my leggings to protect me. So I've definitely kind of learned a lot of assertiveness from that, because I'm not going to compromise my safety just so someone can get to their destination 15 seconds faster. But that does, you know, it can be quite scary, and I do think it's gendered as well. So I saw a piece of research recently from an academic at, I think it was the University of Westminster, and she'd studied it, and women do report a lot more kind of close calls when they're cycling than men do. And there's a whole host of reasons why that could be. It could be that drivers treat women cyclists differently. It could be that women cyclists kind of perceive threats to be more serious than men cyclists do. It could be that, you know, women don't cycle as assertively, and that is the safest way to cycle. So if you're not cycling that way, then you are more likely to have close calls. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons. But it kind of, the bottom line is that it is gendered, how people experience the streets when they're cycling. And a lot of the response to this research was from men cyclists saying, don't blame men, you know, don't blame male cyclists for women not feeling safe, blame the infrastructure, blame fast traffic. And I'm like, sure, yeah, blame fast traffic, and we do need to have more cycle lanes and speed limits need to be lower, all that stuff. But I do get catcalled on my bike from other men on their cycling, and I do have men overtaking me really fast, really close, you know, whatever. Like, there is such a macho culture in cycling, and so many of them just ignored that when this research came out. They were like, oh, it's all about white vans and lorries, and I'm like, that's a significant part of it, but it's not the only thing. So that just made me really angry. I was like, who do you think you are, you know, Peter, to talk about whether or not women feel threatened by men cyclists? Like, but anyway, so I've developed this habit now of when I'm taking the lane cycling, you'll often get people behind you like beeping, and I just cycle along like this. I just cycle with my middle finger over my shoulder, because I'm just like, literally, screw you. Like, and I saw something on Twitter the other day about people always talk about the need for road users to respect each other, and they say, you know, yes, it's really bad that cyclists get killed, but they need to respect drivers and cycle in a respectful way. And I'm like, you know, what that means to people is so different for cyclists versus drivers. If you respect drivers, what that means is that they can get to their destination quicker. If you respect cyclists, what that means is they don't die. Like, it's quite different. So definitely, like, my, you know, being assertive and knowing my rights actually under the Highway Code is really important when I'm cycling. Like, fun, like, just for my safety and for how I experience it. Because
definitely.
I would say, I think, well, firstly, keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, don't let, you know, people's expectations of you change how you behave. But also, do behave like the kind of person that you want to be. So sort of, you know, this whole conversation is based on the premise that it's okay to be assertive and to take up space, and I fully agree with that, but do it in a way that you'd be proud of. Don't you know, do it to put other people down. Don't, you know, take up space in order to be negative in any way. But, you know, if you're confident that that's not what you're doing, and it's probably not, because so, like, very rarely is that actually the case. Very rarely, particularly kind of women and girls, are they actually doing it because they do, you know, have some kind of ulterior motive. You know, just, keep doing it. Be a person that you'd be proud to be. And it sucks, and I'm sorry that it's really hard, but you'll find your way, because most of us have. You'll figure it out.
Cool. And if you could change the world tomorrow, what would you change?
Oh my god, everything. Okay, if we're getting like metaphysical about it, I wish that everybody could have kind of the knowledge and the empathy of what it's like to be other people without having to do any of this fake kind of live on £1 a day stuff, because, you know, you can live on £1 a day and that raises awareness of food poverty, but you still go back to your life, so it's still temporary. But if you could have the awareness of what it's like to be somebody else without having to actually do that performative shit, I think that would be really great. And if there was a way that we could just sort of not read each other's minds, but, you know, just have more empathy just in general. Everyone should have more empathy. I think that would be what I would do.
Sounds like a good idea.
No. I don't think that's achievable under like government policy. What I would say is, I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a kind of read 52 books in a year challenge, and one of my kind of caveats was I'm not going to read anything by white straight men. So that's like, not that necessarily I've read loads of white straight men to begin with, but it's completely diversified kind of the stuff I've been consuming, reading more by people of colour and queer folks, and that's been really great. And it's been a mixture of kind of fiction, non-fiction, poetry, prose, but I feel like, I mean, it's only like July, but I've already kind of got a lot of benefit from that and learned a lot from it. So that's what I would say, is diversify the types of media that you consume. Don't just go for like what's in the mainstream, what's in the New York Times bestseller list. Like, do the work, go on Twitter, find out what people in the know are saying is kind of a good thing to read and to learn about, and then do that. That's what I would say. I read one recently called Future Sex, which was kind of an account of this woman, and she was exploring different types of relationships that are kind of not seen as mainstream, so like polyamory or like kink or whatever. And it was problematic. It was quite kind of cis-centric. It was very embracing of kind of like queer and like LGB folks, but less so kind of trans people and non-binary people. So that would be my main criticism of it. But putting that to one side, it was really sort of challenging a lot of the assumptions that we have about what women are supposed to want from sex and from dating and from relationships. So that was really, it was really interesting, and it was really helpful, and I just kind of read it in like a week, like less than a week flat. Like, I was just constantly reading it. I can't remember what it's called. Oh no, yes I do. So I'm reading a book of short stories from a collective of Black British women writers, and the collection's called Come Let Us Sing Anyway. And it's just, they're all really different but like profound kind of short stories of kind of what it's like being a Black British woman in 2018. Amazingly written, and if you're gonna spend money on books, spend it on black and brown writers, because they're marginalised by mainstream, fiction and mainstream bookshops. So give them your money. That's what I would say.